All right, Kenman here, and today we are on die project number 39, round 2, fight. We have the Kansept Kryo, where we last left off. It has been taken apart and we are ready to get it into the dip. And you can check out part 1 right there. We have the die nice and hot, ready to go. I've got the scales on these hooks, if you haven't seen before. We've got the die just below boiling. These are my Micarta scales. We are going to now take them and just drop them in there, splash them around, make sure there aren't any air pockets. An air pocket would be a spot that die could not adhere to as well as the rest, and therefore it's not uniform. We want a nice even coating on it. We are in, just like that. Boom. All right, let's scooch this over. We can let that go for a little while, just off the side of the camera. We've got all the parts here ready to go, so when we put it back together. But today, we have a kind of a multi-step process. I can show you this Kaiser Lieb right here. I did the die for this. When we started off with this one, with this micarta, it was this light tan, like you see with this Kaiser Cobalt. What color? Ooh. Got it. What color should we do with this one? It's got such a great action to it. Really nice front flipper. But yeah, we've got some fun we can do with this. But this color that this little light tan is what this one was. And then we added some dye to it, got it dark, and then I came back and sanded at it in some spots. And you can see, if I can focus, where it's kind of weathered in different areas. You got different tones and shades along the edge, and it kind of has this kind of grungy, dirty, yet still brand new look to it. I like it. I want to try to do some more weathering, and that's actually what we're going to do with the Kryo here. I have it in some black dye over there, and so that black dye is going to cover this green, and we're going to sand the black dye away and kind of reveal just some of that green underneath. So I'm hoping to kind of have a combo, a kind of a black and green kind of a look. I have some water right here. The water neutralizes the dye. So since this is my card, it soaks in fast and it's black, I'm just going to go quick. We can kind of check and see. One of the nice things about doing a little check when you do a dye is that you can always go back. You can always put it back in and go for more. Once it's darker than you want it to be, it's a little bit harder to bring it back. So it's always kind of nice to kind of bring her out, do a little check. Right now I'm kind of wiping it off. Sometimes the dye will stick a little bit, and then you can't quite see exactly what color is left behind. Some of the shades, especially when you start with something lighter, like a jade, and you got a dark purple or something on there, when you pull the scale out of the dye, it does not look the same. It looks super dark, but then you rinse it and you lose a lot of that color, and then you realize you have to put her back in for a while to darken it up. Excuse me. What are we thinking about this? It's already fairly dark. I mean, they are green. I still kind of see a shade of green, but I'm not sure how far it's going to soak in. So, you know, I can always come back and dye it again later. So what I think we're going to do now is I'm going to leave them at this shade right here, which you can see is actually fairly black. Or should we go back in? No, I think we should stop here. I'm going to dry them off. And then once they're dry, we're going to take a look at them and then figure out if we want to put some more dye on it and do some sand. So let's go over to the table and get these things dry. All right, we got some dry scales here. I'm pretty happy with it. It kind of has like this gray, kind of greenish black kind of shade. Looks a little blue on camera, but it's definitely more of a black gray, kind of leaning towards that green color. I'm going to start off with some 320, and we're going to go in and start seeing what we can make happen with this. I'm not really sure what'll happen, but it's micarta and it was green underneath. So we're going to start kind of scuffing up edges here and seeing what happens. Instantly lighter in that section. We're basically going to be creating stories with the weathering, like what it's naturally doing, where it's naturally getting hits, bumping against stuff, and you got to just let it be a kind of a little random sometimes, and let it kind of just develop, see what you end up with. And if you try too much to just uniformly sand it, it doesn't look as good, because it's not gonna look like a natural weathered thing. It's just gonna look like you kind of sanded it evenly. And so you want sections to be lighter than others and sections to be heavier scraped than others, especially in little areas that are raised. It's really sticking out. I see this big white section. I don't know how white that's going to be once we wash it. That's the other issue with the micarta. I found that it gets chalky and dusty, and then what happens is you can't quite tell, or when it's wet, you don't really see the true color of it. So I'm going to pretty much have to do this until I think I'm happy with it, and then basically stop, get them wet, wash them off, and then kind of let them dry again, and then we'll see. I'm going to hit certain sections like this corner a lot harder, right? Kind of vary it. This curve right here, I'm going to imagine my hand comes around it heavier right there. It's going to wear a little bit harder in that spot. That's kind of one of the neat things about weathering techniques, is it's kind of fun. You just get to play around and experiment. And ultimately, if we don't like it, we'll just throw it back in the black dye, darken it back up, start over, or just leave it dark, call it a day. So it's not like your decisions that you make are going to be set completely in stone. Although it will have an effect, because we are sanding it, we're changing the surface texture. So if it's kind of a rougher micarta, by the time you're done with this, it's going to be stiffer, or smoother, stiffer, I don't know, maybe. What does everyone think about this process, huh? So this is kind of one of those things where it does take some time. I really don't know how hard I want to hit the front of that. I might have to do a light amount first and then wash them off, see what we did, and then go back and then hit it harder in the spots that we want to work a little bit more. So the pocket clip's going to be on this side here, so this side's going to be more exposed. So I can think a little bit more about that when I'm doing the sanding. The other thing to consider is the grit of paper that you use. Kind of started with a 320. It's not quite as coarse. I could definitely go in and get like a much harder, heavier hitting grit. But again, I want to kind of be subtle at first, see what we think is happening, decide whether I like it or not before you go too crazy. All right, so I'm going to hit this side kind of hard right there. Boom. Right across the front a little bit. But really, it's those corners and the creases. Getting into those, I think, is really what gives it that nice kind of weathered patina kind of look. You can see just as like it's naturally been held and eroded away at, or worked away at in those spots more, because it's just constantly getting pushed and worked with your hand every time you use the knife. And one of the things too is like this circle. You might have a tendency you want to go around the whole circle evenly, but that's where you want to keep it kind of random. Let one section be barely touched at all, and then hit the other side really hard. It will look better in the end to just not be consistent when you're doing a weathering job. Sometimes things will weather in a natural, fairly uniform kind of way in certain areas. But again, this is kind of one of those things, I think if you start off slow, you can build and develop it. And so we're going to go this first section here. And like I said, I'm going to then rinse it off, and we're going to take a look, see what we think. If we want to add more dye, or we want to get a heavier grit and go at it even harder. And it's a learning experiment. I'm enjoying it. I hope you are too. Okay. I don't know how much crazier I want to go this first round, because like I said, I kind of want to see how much we really get out of this. Grab another grit real quick here. That's it right there. This is a 400. It's a little less than the other one, but it's a fresh piece at the same time. And some people will even go in there with like a screwdriver or something and just try to scuff it up differently. There is no real, when you're weathering, there's no real right or wrong way. So here's where we're at so far. I'm going to now take them to the water and rinse them off. But if you want to take a quick look, this is one that I had done, this leab, with some weathering and some edges and stuff. I kept this one more subtle for sure, but that's kind of what we're going for here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take it to the sink. We're going to rinse them off really good. Then I'm going to get them nice and dry, and then we'll cut back to here and see where we're at. Boom. Okay, we made it to the table. As you can see, I am happy with the results. I've got everything else here to get her put back together. Once it dried off, we have been left with this kind of interesting, dirty, weathered look. I'm going to put it back together and see how I like it, check it out for a few days. This is how dark we actually made it. So we got it fairly close to kind of a dark black. This is pretty close right here to where it was before. You can see where I touched it already. It like instantly wants to start coloring up some more. But yeah, we're going to go for it. We're going to put it back together, see what it looks like with this weathered look. I'll carry it for a few days. And if I want to continue working with it, I can. But it's an experiment in the weathering project. And here we are. Let's go. All right. So putting her back together should be fairly easy with this one. Pretty simple design. There is no captive pivot. We've got a little spacer that goes there, spacer there. Does that have a... What am I doing wrong? One of these fit differently? My eyeballs. It does not want to sit in that one right. Did I not notice something? Like a little notch? No, it looks round. These are all round. I'm not sure why that's not. Okay. I just had to pop it in there. Maybe the getting wet, the micarta might have spread out a little bit right there and caused it to not seem to fit right, but it looks like we're good to go. All right, let's get this blade back on here. Got the bearings. I am going to close it for the moment. Oops, maybe I should put this on first. Right? Sometimes, you know. Okay. That little spot right there is not clicking on. There we go. All right. I think we've got that. Like I said, it's a fairly straightforward design. Pretty simple one. Sometimes when you have things like button locks with a spring, it creates another little issue or situation you got to pay attention to. And like I said, on this one, it's just everything's pretty simple, pretty straightforward design. Most of these screws are T8s, which is really nice. I love it when they got body screws, T8s. That bigger head on there, it's just much easier, less likely to strip out. As I say in my other videos, when you put a knife back together, you do not want to tighten it all the way down right away. You want to pay attention to the blade centering. And so you want to kind of tighten it down evenly accordingly to make sure that you can maintain that. So right now everything is, I screwed it in, but I did not screw it tight. I am a lefty, so the pocket clip is going on this side, but it is not something that can be done with this knife. So I have to put it on this side here, which is fine. It would be nice to have that lefty option, but it does not always keep me from purchasing the knife. The pants that I have some pockets that work well. Doesn't really matter which way the clip is, and it's still safely secure in your pocket. All right, don't tighten those all the way down yet. So let's crank this down. It is not a captive pivot, so I might need to use two tools here, but I don't need to crank it because we kind of loosen it a little bit. So we'll try right there for now. And now we're going to go around and evenly kind of tighten everything up. I don't try to crank on one side too hard first. I like to kind of do it evenly just in case so there's any extra pressure on one side versus another. I don't know if it even makes a difference, but you know, you get into a habit of doing something. And if it takes that little extra effort to make sure you do it better, I will spend that time. Always go back to the screws back and forth a couple times on the pocket clip, because when you tighten one down, it's so close to each other, it can loosen up the other one. All right, let's loosen the blade. Let me try this one. Just a little bit there. Maybe not that much. Okay, we are centered. And it is solid. All right. Doesn't mean I can't loosen it or tighten it a little bit. Ooh, I think we are good. I think we are good. Let's clean up and check it out. We are now completing die project number 39. This is the Kansept Kryo. And I did a weathered look on this. So we kind of took a light green scale and dyed it kind of close to black. And then I went back and did all that sanding, as you saw, and left us with this. What does everyone think of the final product? It kind of just has a dirty, kind of weathered, beat-in kind of a look. Kind of makes the texture and the micarta pop out a little bit more. There's some little lighter areas, some darker areas. It definitely gets lighter around the edge. I could go back and do it some more. Let's kind of mess around with the action, see how it goes. Feels like it's working just as it did. All the directions. It's got a really nice snappy sound. I love the feel of this. Okay, so I took a photo, or I didn't take a photo, but I screen captured from the first video. So I will hold this right about here. You should be able to see the other one above it. So before and after. All right. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of one of those ones where it's subtle, but let's take a real close look here. You can just kind of see, it just kind of looks like it's just dirtier in spots. And the edge has got a nice little kind of weathered creases, and then around the there and like right there, you can see it kind of looks like it's hit a little bit more. Try to make it look like it was just kind of been through some work, been through some stories. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I don't know, I almost maybe want a little more contrast, a little more dirty. But you know, micarta, I'm going to sit here and go like this with my hand, and look, it's already doing stuff. So here is, it's like we basically kind of pre-weathered it. Now I can carry it around a little bit, enjoy it for a while, and see how it kind of continues and changes. Or I can, maybe, like I said, go back and dye it again. That's one of the neat things about dye. You can always make it darker. You can't make it lighter. Oops, I missed one. Yeah, I'm pretty happy. Die Project 39 in the books. Feels good about it. If you like what you see, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to see more. Helps me out, and I really appreciate it. I've been doing a lot of dyes. This is the, what you call a fail. This is the CJRB Mangrove. Did in the cool kind of a transitional fade dye. I've been working on those fade dyes. If you haven't seen one of those, check it out right up there. Stay sharp. I'll see you soon.